Yep, and
Welcome back to your mum's favourite channel on YouTube.
Cult Strength. Today, we're talking about building a big old booty. Now, I know a lot of you guys watching this channel, you think, I'm not going to train my booty. It's probably a bit effeminate. Maybe you're insecure. Because if you ask this young lady here, do you prefer a man with a fat ass or a flat ass?
A fat ass.
A fat ass. Now, me as a man, I also have my preference. I'm not discriminating against the flat-bootied ladies, but I prefer a big cake. You know what I'm saying? Face first. Now, that's inappropriate, but this video isn't. We're going to be showing you, or specifically you, you're going to be showing us your 3 favorite glute building exercises.
Yes.
Which is exciting. Now, if there was anyone that I would want to take advice off when it comes to building a big fat booty, it would be this woman. That thing has its own postcode. I'm telling you right now. Now, I also know that most of my audience is male, and we kind of thought making a glute building video would be risky. In my opinion, I think a lot of you guys would benefit from training your glutes if you take your training seriously, if you want to train for a long time into the future, and you want to be strong in your crippled old age, and we all get older, don't we?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I'm a vampire.
She is a vampire. You've looked the same age for at least the last 8 years, and you've sucked the life out of me. Let me tell you, I have aged dramatically, but that's okay. That's what you get when you have a hot missus. And I also know that a small percentage of you maybe have a girlfriend or even a female that you know. Now, if you think that they could benefit from training their glutes, then I strongly suggest you forward this on to them, because you could be the one that gets to reap the rewards of their hard work and their big old booty. Yes?
Yes.
Now, when I met this lady, luckily she already had a big old caboose. But with my expertise and my gentle hand, we were able to develop what was already a robust behind into something that has its own gravitational pull. So without further ado, we're going to get into this hot goth mummy's top 3 glute building exercises, and I'm going to help you guys understand what the fuck is going on. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. First up, we have the hip thrust. Now, this is an excellent glute builder, and this has been a staple of building that entire thing on the back of your body. Now, for this movement, what you're going to need, a bench. Now, she's using it on a slight decline just to make it easier to get into position, but any bench will do. A barbell. We need some, ideally, Olympic-sized plates, but any plates will do, but these bigger ones will make it easier for you to set up and get under the bar. And if you're a female, or if you pull sumo, there is a bar pad as well. Now, when it comes to setting up for this movement, how to get everything into the right position. So, with your back, where on the bench is that?
It's just under my shoulder blades, so it's mid-upper back.
Mid-upper back. And your hand position on the bar, does that matter?
Not necessarily, but I like to put it out, just out of habit, just on the rings, and lock my arms to keep the bar balanced.
Stability is obviously really important. Now, a big thing that I think a lot of people would struggle with is, where do they put their feet? Because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of different ways to do things. And also, you can do this movement on machines. You can do it with other equipment, but most people have access to a barbell, and it's extremely simple to do. But with the foot position, can you explain a little bit about where they should be to target the glutes?
Sure. You want to bring your feet in so your knees are at roughly 90-degree angle. That's where you'll isolate the glutes. When you bring your feet in more towards your glutes, it becomes more of a quad dominant movement, and when your feet are too far away from you, it becomes more of a hamstring dominant exercise.
So that makes a lot of sense. So you want to find that 90-degree angle with the knee. That's going to be the optimal position for most people. Now, of course, some people's limb length will vary, so there's going to be a little bit of a difference depending on how tall you are, for example, but 90 degrees is roughly the go. But when it comes to the feet, now this is extremely important, and it's a bit of a nuance with the hip thrust in any sort of deadlift or squat movements, right? How we're applying pressure to the floor with our feet is also going to accentuate us hitting certain muscles. So with your feet, what sort of pressure are you applying to the floor? Is it through your heels? Is it through your toes? Is it balanced? Can you tell us more?
It's balanced, so you want the pressure to be kind of even through the foot and press your toes down into the floor.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of people, when they do this, they see other influencers doing it, and a lot of the time they just have their heel going into the floor, and that's not really going to allow you to hit the glutes like you need to. So make sure you really dig that big toe into the ground as well. Just like when we deadlift, just like when we squat, it's an excellent anchor point, and it will allow you to use that posterior chain exactly how you're wanting to. Now, when it comes to foot pressure, would you say that it's better to do this movement with bare feet or with shoes on?
Preferably with either bare feet if you can, or flat-soled shoes.
So nothing with too much cushion, nothing too spongy. You want something low profile, just like we would generally recommend that you use when you're doing any lower body training in the gym. And obviously when it comes to building muscle, rep ranges are extremely important. But what's really important is we don't limit ourselves to just one sort of rep range. Now, with this movement, we can treat it the same as we would treat, maybe a deadlift or a squat. We can hit lower rep ranges. We could hit 3 reps. We could hit 5 reps. We could really work on that strength. But also we can use this for hypertrophy. We could do repetitions up as high as 30 reps and still get great hypertrophy. So I definitely think if you're looking to grow your glutes, be sure to train this through a different range of repetitions and sets. And as always, when you want to grow muscle, you must continue to progressively overload the movement. So you can't just do the same weight for the same reps and expect to grow. You either have to start doing more repetitions, more total volume, or increase the load if you want to get a bigger, fatter ass. Is that the truth?
Truth.
Exercise number 2 for massive glutes is the Romanian deadlift. Now, there's a lot of confusion about how this movement should be done. People confuse it with the stiff-legged deadlift, but this is the RDL. The weights do not touch the floor. Now, what's important for this movement is that our feet are stacked under our hips, just like we would for a deadlift. Everything about this is almost a deadlift, the entire setup. And to start the movement, we pick it up and we start from the top. So if you can do that for me, I'm gonna go over the cues for this movement. Now, the first thing we wanna do here, make sure our big toes in the ground nice and hard. Take a big breath, pull our rib cage down to our pelvis. We're gonna push our hips back to the wall, and our chest is gonna come down to the floor, eyes looking straight down. Nice and controlled eccentric, stopping the weights just above the floor and standing up again. Now, to make sure that you're really targeting the glutes, would you say that it's really important that you externally rotate from the hips, meaning that you push the knees out a little bit? Is that how you're gonna target the glutes with this?
Yes.
So I think that's really important, right? A lot of people just go through the movement, kind of going through the motions, but they don't really pay attention to the nuances or the small things. So what's important is those big toes in the ground. What that's going to allow you to do, right, is externally rotate. So you grip the floor with your toes, externally rotate, so corkscrew the ground. Those knees are going to travel out slightly, so instead of caving in or going straight, they're going to be slightly pointed out. That's going to allow you to maximize your glute growth with this movement. Am I right?
Yes.
Would you do this movement early in a workout? Because with a deadlift, you would typically do this kind of movement early on, and you would use it generally as more of a strength, sometimes a hypertrophy movement. But what sort of rep range would you work in with this?
If I've done a hip thrust movement in lower rep ranges, then I would make this a higher rep range.
But if you've done this first, then you would do the hip thrust with a higher rep range?
Yes.
Okay, so you can definitely use both of these movements in a glute workout, but don't do both heavy, right? So if you're gonna do a hip thrust heavy, and maybe you're doing 5 to 8 repetitions with a hip thrust, you would do, say, 12 to 15 reps, maybe even 20 repetitions with the RDL. Would that be right?
Yes.
Perfect. And again, progressive overload. Make sure you're either increasing the reps, the total sets or volume, or the weight if you want to increase your fucking booty size. Make sure you like this video, drop a comment, let us know if you're enjoying this so far, and of course, subscribe to
your mum's favorite channel on YouTube.
Cold Strength. Let's go. Now, number 3 is a reverse lunge. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've never done this movement. I've never coached this movement. So I'm going to leave this one completely up to you. Can you please let me know what the fuck is going on and how you can do this movement?
Yes. So all you need is a 20 kilo plate to create a deficit. And the reason for a deficit is to create a full stretch in the glute.
I see that, yep.
So unlike an ordinary lunge that's stationary level, we get a full stretch right in the bottom of the movement.
Okay, and normally with a lunge, they're used to target the quadriceps, and there's generally a forward movement with the knee pushing over the toes. With this movement, I could see you doing that. So if you could do a few more reps for me there. I can see there's more of a straight shin, and we're looking to sort of push the hip back slightly to keep more of a straight shin. Is that what I'm seeing? There's still a slight bend forward, but it's not as much as you would see with a typical lunge. So you're getting more of a stretch through the glute, yeah, obviously, especially with that deficit. Now, would it make sense to use a higher deficit to get more of a stretch, or is it taking the piss a little bit?
It's taking the piss a little bit.
So it's a bit too much. So you just want to create a small deficit just to get a little bit of an extra stretch. But again, obviously, if you use too much of a deficit, then you have to probably lower the weight. And, you know, using a heavier weight sometimes is important as well if you want muscle growth.
You can do weighted step-ups instead.
Of course, yeah. And that's going to probably target quadriceps, or it depends on the angle of the knee.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of the things when it comes to targeting the glutes, right, is that the difference between sometimes hitting more of the quadricep and hitting the glute with these movements is if you want to hit the quad, we want to encourage our knees to push forward over the toes, right? Exactly like that. That's really going to hit the quadriceps. But if you want to hit the posterior chain, the glutes, the hamstrings, we want a slightly straighter knee with a little bit more of the hips coming back opposed to pushing forward, right? That's going to be the difference with quadriceps and glutes. And with powerlifting, right, a lot of the women, you'll see a lot of the big squatters, and you would assume that a massive squatter would have big glutes, but you have to understand that a lot of the squat techniques used are very quadricep dominant, and you see these girls with massive quads but actually rather small glutes, because doing just heavy squats doesn't necessarily equate to big glutes. Yes, squats can be an excellent glute builder, but again, specificity and doing them in an exact way is going to be important. Just like with the deadlifts. Now we can do deadlifts to, you know, target the glutes, to target the lower back. It's just going to depend on how we're executing the movement. If we're using perhaps a slower centric, if we're just doing maximal strength work, it's all going to vary. But these three different variations that you've done today, obviously glute specific, the little nuances between the movements make them more glute specific, with obviously the deficit and the more of the reverse lunge opposed to no deficit and more of that forward movement with the knee traveling forward. That's going to be the difference between hitting the quads, hitting the glutes. With the RDL, obviously the glutes are going to be hit a little bit harder if we can have that external rotation. And obviously we really want to encourage that stretch and that eccentric on the way down to stretch the glutes and to stretch the hamstrings. That's really important. And obviously with the first movement, the hip thrust, having the feet in the right position. So having your heels, you know, not too far back, not too far forward. The knee angle at 90 degrees is going to be really important when it comes to hitting the glutes. Did I nail it?
Nailed it.
So I was a student today, really. I know a little bit about some things, but you know, that's pretty easy to understand. I hope that we made it easy for you to understand. If you have any questions about the movements, please drop them in the comments and we'll do our best to get back to you.
So there you have it, guys. Those are my top 3 favorite glute building exercises. Make sure you go to the gym and try them out. Get your girlfriend to do them, if you have a girlfriend or a love interest.
And your mum.
And your mum.
Show your mum. And if you, any ladies out there watching this, if you want to see more content like this, let us know. I know this channel is currently dominated by men, something like 96% to 4%, which is outrageous. You're a bunch of perverts. But we do want to encourage more women to come to this channel. So any more content you want to see this lovely lady and I present, just let us know. And you know, you got to fucking like the video because we're trying to grow the channel. Subscribe so we have more subscribers, and the more people that see that we have more subscribers, they'll think that the videos are worth watching. And then if you like the video, then they will say, oh, more people like this video, it's worth watching. That's how people are. If you go to a video and no one's watched it, no one's liked it, you're probably not going to watch it because you'll think, that's pretty shitty. Imagine how much gold you've missed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But anyway, if you can do that, that'd be sick. And until next time,
go to the gym
and get a fat ass. Let's go.